I think he's got a soft chin, and I think that I think I'm gonna hurt him. Like I said, I'm gonna hit this guy so many times that he's not gonna know what's gonna happen, and then I'm gonna put him away.
The line is drawn. Malignaggi versus Lobov. Boxing versus MMA. Which will reign supreme? Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship 6. Malignaggi versus Artem Lobov. For the first time ever in the Sunshine State. With UFC legend Chris Lieben taking on Bellator star Brennan Ward. Plus the lightweight tournament final. Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship 6. The line is drawn. Saturday, June 22nd, only on pay-per-view.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the shows, the face-to-face series. Well, there's only one face on the face-to-face series, but we'll get to that. We're focusing on yeah, there you go. We're focusing on BKFC 6, the Julian Lane, Tom Shoaff fight. Great card, huge card. We're focusing on that right now. So I got Tom Shoaff on the line via Skype. Tom, what's going on, man?
You're looking at it, brother. Just at the gym. We just got done with our sparring session for the day. And just staying in shape, just getting ready for the biggest fight of my career yet.
Hey, well, speaking of that, where's your opponent at, bro? Where's he at?
Man, no, I think I don't know. I don't see him. It is what it is. He's apparently has other obligations. Julian, I mean this genuinely from the bottom of my heart. I hope you're okay. And if you are, don't be scared, homie. It's gonna be fun. It's going to be fun.
Well, speaking of, I guess let's backtrack a little bit, okay? Let's backtrack to Cancun, all right?
Okay.
You had the fight against Diego. You got your revenge back. You're 1-1 with him now. I guess for people who maybe didn't see that card or didn't see that fight, shame on them, first off. But I guess maybe kind of rehash, what was it like kind of going to that fight? What lessons did you take that you're going to carry over into this fight with Julian?
That's a good question. I learned from the first fight that I can't just stand and trade shots with people. I can't just I can't play that game. So in the second fight, I made sure to really utilize my boxing, my footwork, my angles. I picked my shots. I made sure that I was more accurate and precise.
Yeah.
And it carried true. I boxed the brawler. I have to essentially do the same thing in this fight. Julian's a bigger guy. He's longer. He's probably going to hit a little harder. But, yeah, I feel like I'm going to be way faster than he is. And I'm going to essentially utilize the same game plan. I'm going to stick and move, and I'm going to outbox him. I'm going to box his fucking ears off.
Did you watch this fight with Leonard?
I did. Yeah.
What did you take away from that?
I think he's got a soft chin. I think he came down to 165, and Leonard came up to 165, and Leonard knocked him the fuck out. Leonard looked soft, and he didn't look like he belonged at 165. And he still knocked Julian out. I don't know what happened to Julian in training camp. I don't know what his head was like going into that fight, but I think he's got a soft chin, and I think that I think I'm going to hurt him. Like I said, I'm going to hit this guy so many times that he's not going to know what's going to happen. And then I'm going to put him away. That's what I learned from that fight, is that I have the ability to outbox him and knock him out. I can put him away. I can finish him.
I guess speaking of camp, how is camp going for this fight?
Wonderful. I spent a lot of time powerlifting. Actually, after my last fight, I was in the ring with Diego, and he came up to me and he said, "Tom, if you had a little bit of punching power, you wouldn't have had to beat my ass for 4 rounds." And I really took that to heart, and I went back into my record from like MMA, kickboxing, the whole 9 yards. And my last knockout was when I was powerlifting, and I haven't had a knockout since then. So I decided to go back to my powerlifting. I figured, why the hell not? So I'm at Applied Strength and Conditioning. It's a Westside Barbell affiliate out in Chesterton, Indiana. And they just have me doing ridiculous shit, just getting as strong as possible, as quickly as possible. So that's been a new part of my my training camp. That's been fun. But outside of that, it's just been more of the same. Boxing, boxing, boxing. Footwork and angles. Footwork and angles. My game plan hasn't changed much from the last fight, so my training has only intensified and gotten, my whole goal is to get me bigger, faster, and stronger.
Well, let me ask you this, just out of sheer curiosity, since you were talking about it. Most guys I hear about, they do more like plyometric training and like weight-based training, stuff like that. When it comes to powerlifting, I imagine that's like stress on your joints and stuff like that. And when you're training, like I know you're trained to kind of beat yourself up to get yourself prepared, but in terms of the recovery process, how does powerlifting, I guess, change that recovery process? Because it is a lot of stress on your joints and on your muscles. How does it differ from,
Yeah, from any other style of training? Well, the best way that I can describe it is MMA fighters beat the shit out of their bodies.
Yeah.
We grapple for an hour. We wrestle for an hour. We spar for an hour. It's 3 or 4 hours a day you're in the gym.
Right.
So a lot of your strength and conditioning is predominantly plyometric because it is easier on the body. You get a killer workout, but it's easier on the body.
Right.
I'm not beating the shit out of my body. I'm not beating up my head. I'm not beating up anything. I'm putting 2 pounds of padding on my hands and punching bags or gloves or mitts or whatever.
Yeah.
So the intensity as far as the workouts are concerned aren't the same. So I can go take that same intensity that I would put into grappling and jiu-jitsu into the weight program, and the recovery doesn't change because I'm just substituting one for the other. In my opinion, I could just be making this shit up, but in my head, it totally makes sense. I go lift, and I go lift real heavy and real slow in the mornings, and then in the afternoons, it's all speed, endurance, footwork, the whole 9 yards. So I try to keep a nice fine balance. But yeah, that would be my take on that. Is my recovery process hasn't really changed because I've taken the wrestling and the grappling out of the equation.
That makes perfect sense. So you and Julian, you guys come from a similar background in terms of, MMA crossing into the bare knuckle world. How do you see, you kind of touched on it, but specifically, how do you see your style clashing with his style when you guys meet on the 22nd?
That's a really good, he comes from, okay, so he is a predominantly MMA background. He has an MMA background. He, as far as I know, he's never trained any traditional boxing. He's never had any traditional boxing matches. I could be wrong, but as far as I know, Julian is tried and true MMA fighter, 100%. I started as a boxer. I did amateur boxing. I did low-level boxing. I did. I boxed. That's what I did from the age of 17, 18 until now, basically. I did MMA because it was more exciting. It was more fun. There was more for me to do, whatever the case may be. So my mentality is a little bit different. I have the experience of an MMA fighter with the mentality of a boxer, and I feel like that's really going to help me out and help me excel in this fight because I have the best of both worlds. I know what it's like to fight in the clinch. I know what it's like to have to move and protect at the same time. I don't have to worry about takedowns. I know the angles of boxing. I know how sloppy an MMA fighter can be compared to a traditional boxer. All of this is already in my head, and I don't think it's in Julian's head. And I think that's my advantage. Is even though I have an MMA background, I have the boxer's mentality. That's what's going to win it for me.
Yeah, that's interesting, and you might be one of the best guys to ask about this then, because we did a poll, and I think we had almost 2,000 votes or something, 2,000, 3,000 votes on what would be more successful in bare knuckle boxing, somebody coming from the MMA world or the traditional gloved boxing world. And it was interesting. It was maybe like 60-40 MMA. I think a lot of people are, associating with, I guess, let me ask you this, instead of me putting in my 2 cents, that doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot. Let me ask you this. So, in terms of clinch work, someone coming from a traditional boxing world, learning to use, that half plum clinch that you can use in bare knuckle, how important is it with the experience that you get from utilizing that in MMA and then bringing that into bare knuckle versus boxers who don't really They don't mess with that.
That's the biggest thing is boxing doesn't have dirty boxing.
Right.
That's why it's called dirty boxing. Like, it's dirty. You know what I'm saying? You're not supposed to clinch. You're not supposed to hold on and fire in close and pull the head down and fire uppercuts. Like, you're not supposed to do that. Right. Boxers don't like that. They don't enjoy that. That is a huge part of MMA. That's 30% of the game is cage work. Yeah. So coming from an MMA background and coming from that, having that experience and that mentality, I think the MMA fighters 100% have an advantage when it comes into this sport because of that clinch game, because you're allowed to get a hold of people and wrap them up. And as long as one of my hands keep punching and I can hold on to you, right, I can fire the whole round. I can beat you up the whole round from that position. Boxers aren't used to that. You're used to refs coming in, separating it, splitting it up, and then getting back to range. I will say this, though. I think what stands out the most, I think what's the most important in this sport specifically is accuracy. It's precision. It does not matter how hard I hit you. I just have to hit you accurately. If I can put 2 knuckles in one eye and 2 knuckles in the other eye and cut you or swell you to the point where you can't fight anymore, I only had to throw 2 punches. I didn't have to knock you out. You know, I don't have to do that. All I have to do is be accurate. I have to be a sharpshooter. That's my opinion on the situation. You could probably ask Chris Lieben something completely different. You know, he might have a different mentality towards it. He just wants to run out and maul you. You could ask Julie, and he could have a completely different mentality. But my stance on it is boxer or MMA fighter. If you're accurate, you're gonna win, plain and simple. Because you can't club in this game. You just can't do it. You can't swing for the fences. You can't just hope that you hit something. Yep. You're going to break your hand, just plain and simple. You're going to break your thumb. You're going to break a knuckle. Something's going to break. You have to be accurate. That would be my stance on that. The boxer versus MMA fighter is, regardless of background, you have to be accurate.
Well, perfect segue. Artem Lobov versus Paulie Malignaggi. Who's going to take it?
If I were going to bet on it, Artem.
Interesting.
The reason I say that is because Artem is incredibly difficult to knock out. He's been in there already, and he's a pressure fighter. Paulie has soft hands. He's got a soft head, and it usually takes him 3 or 4 rounds to get warm. He doesn't have 12 rounds to fight this fight. He's got 5 2-minute rounds. He's got 10 minutes, not 30.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the biggest difference. I think that's what's gonna make the difference in this fight. Artem's gonna come out with all the shit talking and the spitting and everything else. Artem's gonna come out like a maniac. And he's in shape enough to maintain that pace for 10 minutes. That's my opinion on the situation. If I were to bet on it, I'd go Artem.
You know what? That's an interesting point, and yeah, you're right. Like Paulie, it takes him a few rounds to really start getting warmed up. It usually takes him a while to kind of feel out the other fighter.
Right. Find his range, get his groove, get his timing, things along those lines. He doesn't have that.
Exactly.
He just doesn't have it.
So I guess coming again, just from your experience, for someone who's fought the same way for years, trained the same way for years, I mean, how much time do you think someone needs? Now, granted, he's obviously at he's at a certain level because he's a world champion class boxer.
Nobody's taking that away from him.
Yeah, right. Nobody's taking that away from him.
He was one of the best in the world, no doubt about it.
But honestly, how long is it enough for him to train in bare knuckle, utilizing that half clinch, getting used to getting started earlier versus he doesn't have that time to feel Artem out? I mean, how long realistically should he train for so he can get used to that after all the years and years and years and years and years of doing it the same way?
If I were his coach or his manager or whatever, and he came to me and he said, "Hey, I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing."
Yeah.
With his pedigree and with his background, I would work nothing but clinch work for like 90 days out from the fight. He already knows how to box.
Right.
He doesn't need help with his range. He doesn't need help with his head movement. He doesn't need help with his footwork. He needs help in the clinch. That's the one area that Artem or whoever he's going to fight is going to have an advantage over him. That's the one spot that he is clueless in. And what I would do if I were his coach or in his corner is I would take him for no less than 90 days. 90 days, we're focusing on this area and this area alone. That way, when he's in that situation, which we know he will be, he's comfortable. Every other situation, he can do it like he's sleeping. He can do it with his eyes closed, hands behind his back. Every other situation, he's got locked in. But that clinch is a different game. So that's what I would. That's what I would do. Is if I would, if I were on Paul's team, I would. It'd be like, we're going to put you in a Thai school, and we're going to teach you how to clinch and only clinch for the next 90 days. That's what
yeah. Wow. That's an awesome. You know what? That brings up some points that I hadn't thought of before. I appreciate that. That's an awesome analysis of that. I guess June 22nd. Bottom line, man. How do you get it done? How do you get it done versus Julian? What's your plan?
Footwork and angles, man. Like I already said, I firmly believe that the accuracy is what's going to win this fight for me. I know he's bigger. I know he's stronger. I know he's going to come out like a bull in a china shop and try to run me over, especially after his last performance. He wants to come out and prove that his career's not behind him. I need to move. And I need to be accurate, and that's it. I do the same thing to Julian that I did to Diego, and it's going to be a fairly easy night. Let me rephrase. It's going to be a fairly short night. Probably won't be easy. He's a tough motherfucker, but it'll be a short night. Like I said, I've been training my ass off. I haven't stopped training since the last fight. I did a 90-day camp for this fight. I knew I was coming back. In the June time, so I started training, started lifting. I've been busting my butt for the last 2.5 months getting ready for this fight. It didn't matter who they were throwing me in there with. I have zero intention of losing. So I'm going to go out there and do what I know how to do, and I'm going to outbox this fool.
Segue that into, I guess, final words for Julian.
Don't be scared, homie.
Okay. All right. Well, you heard it. Tom Shoaff versus Julian Lane. Saturday, June 22nd, BKFC number 6, Malignaggi versus Lobov. It's going to be in Tampa, Florida, live and only on pay-per-view. Guys, don't miss it. I am Joshua Furs, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.
The line is drawn. Malignaggi versus Lobov. Boxing versus MMA. Which will reign supreme? Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship 6. Malignaggi versus Artem Lobov. For the first time ever in the Sunshine State. With UFC legend Chris Lieben taking on Bellator star Brennan Ward. Plus the lightweight tournament final. Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship 6. The line is drawn. Saturday, June 22nd, only on pay-per-view.